Welcome back. You're with the Newsfeed Late Night, and our focus on the region tonight, looking at Zimbabwe now, where Zimbabwean journalists have accused the government of being too secretive with crucial information on the Covid-19 progression in the country. This is contained in a report by the Voluntary Media Council of Zimbabwe following some research on the situation. Journalists there say that government is usually not eager to share details and often sends them from pillar to post when they ask crucial questions around Covid-19 developments. Let's find out more from our correspondent in the country there, Xolisani Ncube, who joins us now from the capital, Harare. Xolisani, good evening, and thank you very much for your time. How often does the government in Zimbabwe brief the country or even the media on the progress in the fight against Covid-19?
Good evening, Tavo. Well, let me say that the government of Zimbabwe does brief journalists here and there, but the critical question is the depth of the briefings. That's the first thing that we have to look at, as well as which media house are you coming from. If you're coming from the private media, you have a big hassle to get the information. First and foremost, every Tuesday they've got what they call the cabinet briefing. They talk about the COVID-19, but again, especially these days, there is no an opportunity to ask questions to the ministers because they will tell you the ministers are not there to take questions. Only one minister will be there to brief and these journalists, and you can't follow up on any question to probe anything that you think that this needs further clarification from government. And that in the end leaves journalists with very little information to work on, and the public is given very little information to make to understand how government is responding to COVID-19.
Yeah. So where do journalists get their information? What do they rely on?
Well, in this age and this era of social media, I would tell you, Tabo, that everything that you would want to get on social media. But the challenge is that the authenticity of this information that will be awash on social media, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, and everything like that, it's not very much reliable. You cannot trust that kind of information 100% to feed the nation on and say, this is the government's response to COVID-19. That leaves a lot of, that's why you would find that at the beginning of the inoculation program, people were very hesitant to participate in it because there was little information on the efficacy of the vaccines and so on and so forth. Government was not very much forthcoming. Also, the challenge is that the country has got no clear-cut policy to say, if you want to ask this question, you go to this person will direct you to that person, and at the end of the day, you are moved from pillar to pole, and you can't really get a quick answer that you would want at any given time. Yeah.
In South Africa, we have the Minister of Health leading the process. He is, I suppose, the head of all the command councils in the country, and all forms of information around COVID-19 would come from that department. Where is the center in Zimbabwe of information, and how much does that center know about how the virus, I beg your pardon, is progressing right now?
I'll tell you, in Zimbabwe, it's a bit of a challenge, The chairperson of the command council or the command committee on COVID-19, it's headed by the defense minister, who co-chairs it with the vice president, who is the minister of health. Just getting an interview with the vice president, it's a hassle on its own. I will tell you, there's no private press that has had any interview with the vice president, who in this case, Chiwenga. He is very, very elusive. He can't just sit down with any journalist to talk about COVID-19 or any other health matters. The other co-chair, in this case, the Minister of Defense, she's very elusive. You can't talk to her. She behaves like any other person in the security system who doesn't want to talk to the media. At the end of the day, we are left at the mess of officials in the Ministry of Information, and in this case, the Minister of Information. She comes here and there, but the problem again is the quality of this information. It is an information passed on from the Department of Health. She can't represent fully or probably explain most of these things in a simplistic manner that can be consumed by the public. Or that leaves the gap in terms of how much people know about the COVID-19, and as well as how much, the minister who's talking about it knows about the strategy of fighting COVID-19 in the country. So it's a kind of like a challenge, because the people who are supposed to be at the forefront in explaining or leading the task force are not there to talk to the people. Also, we have got the chairperson of the task force, or the coordinator, who is Dr. Maomba. She too is very elusive to the private press. Yes, she has been there talking to the state media almost on a daily basis. She'll be on TV talking to the state media. But if you're coming from the private press, you can't really talk to her. She'll ask you, who are you? Have you ever worked for the state media? How much have you been in the media industry? And for young people, or for young journalists who are coming from college straight, it's a hassle for them.
Now, according to Newsday editor Wisdom Mudzangairi, there is now beginning to be questions on the authenticity of the figures that are being shared in the country around the number of infections. I mean, is that a general feeling?
Well, I would tell you that since day one, people thought that the country is trying to play politics with COVID-19, largely because at first the country was in denial that there is COVID-19. The chairperson of the task force, in this case, Opam Chinguri Kashiri, who is the defense minister, she came out and said this is a Chinese warfare with the Europe. She was very much adamant that COVID-19 was real until it struck within the government. That's when we saw a change in approach. I would agree with Wisdom Zungairi to a large extent and say that there is a feeling among many journalists in Zimbabwe that the government has been cooking up figures, especially on the number of cases. Also, there was a feeling that the government is doing an under-testing at the end of the day, the real situation on the ground as to how many people have been affected with COVID-19 has not been projected truthfully and in an honest manner. The feeling is very much pronounced, especially when you talk to journalists, some of whom have suffered from COVID-19. They'll tell that, look, we went to hospital, got tested, but we were not counted probably because many people they don't trust the government when it comes to information. That's generally the feeling in Zimbabwe. They feel this government is playing politics with COVID-19.
Talk to me then about the progression of the inoculation program. Do we know where it's sitting at the moment, how many vaccines have been procured in the country, and how many have been administered?
Tabo, with the last time we had a very clear briefing on the COVID-19 vaccine program, I will tell you that we were told that the government has paid for 4 million extra doses from China. But what has been in the country or delivered in the country, it's above 1.5 million so far. And the country just over the weekend surpassed the 500,000 mark. And we are now talking of around 532,000 thousand doses that have been administered. But again, of late, we've seen a kind of like a decrease in the number of people who are getting inoculated. We don't know why. Government hasn't really explained what could be the reason why people are no longer coming out as they used to, during the months of April as well as early May. The past week or so, it has been a change in terms of the outlook. People are no longer coming out as they used to. We don't know. Probably it's because of fatigue as well as the hype and the advertising has just gone down. People are no longer interested, or the fear of the COVID-19 is no longer that much. The fear for people are no longer afraid of COVID-19. Probably that's my take.
Yeah. Have you investigated the veracity of the claims that we have been seeing in some reports that South Africans have allegedly been heading to Zimbabwe to get their vaccination doses?
I spoke to the government first and foremost. They said that they need to do a very thorough investigation as to is this true that people are flocking the country to get vaccines. What we have seen is that the Chinese who reside in Zimbabwe were flocking one health point in Harare to get inoculated, and they pay because they are foreigners, paying $40. Also, we've heard reports. I would say I haven't done an independent investigation to say these people have come in Zimbabwe and coming precisely to be vaccinated. The challenge is one. you need to have a 28-day period for you to get from the first dose to the second dose. So for people to come to Zimbabwe this week, after 20 days they come back again. There seems to be a mismatch in terms of that kind of information if you want to look at it in a very holistic manner. But what we heard from the ministry is that there could be Zimbabweans who reside in South Africa who will be coming home and benefit from the program. That is very possible, yes. Also, some tourists who are coming into Zimbabwe, especially Victoria Falls, they've added got an opportunity to be inoculated, probably just getting one jab and they go back. And they'll be coming back probably after 2 months or so to get the second jab, but not coming like specifically for for vaccine. I would tell you that it's a bit of a challenge to confirm that this is happening. Yeah. We will need a lot of time to study the pattern of people who are coming to the country. By the way, also, remember, Zimbabwe's land borders are still closed. So it's only the airports that are working at the moment, and it's only those who are able to fly who are able to come into the country and get the vaccines.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you talk of tourists as well, that's the other report that is doing the rounds, that Zimbabweans are seeing a boost in vaccine tourism as foreign nationals starting to arrive in the country in big numbers because they pay a fee for the vaccine.
Yes, I would say if you look at the numbers that came from Victoria Falls, one would think that indeed these people were tourists, because the moment they said that tourists, when they come in the country, for them to feel welcome and integrate and probably interact with the communities, they must get vaccinated. Yes, we saw quite a number of people who received their single doses, and they were yet to get their second doses. And there is a very big mismatch in terms of people who have got their second dose, their first dose, and those who have got their second dose from Victoria Falls. So it means it shows that people flew into the country, came for holidays, and they managed to get their first dose of the vaccines. But getting second dose, we had to really look at it and say, did they come back and get their second dose? We had to get those figures coming out so clear and explain that kind of a scenario.
Polisani, I appreciate your time. Thanks for talking to us tonight. Newsroom Africa correspondent, live for us in the capital of Harare in Zimbabwe. We continue in a moment on the Newsfeed Late Night and bring you what's leading in the news. Stay with us.